the profile interview segment this week, I'll be speaking with the General Secretary of NASU, who also doubles up as the President of PSI Africa and Arab countries. He brings us up to speed on some of the challenges that Nigerian workers are faced with, while also highlighting the need for the federal government of Nigeria to immediately set up the committee to review the national minimum wage. He also insists that there is no need for a wage award, as this will not come to terms with the needs of workers. It's good to have you on the program.
Thank you for having me.
It's been a long time since we had a conversation, and a lot of activities have been happening in the education sphere. And can you bring us up to speed on how elections have fared in your sector, which you've been part of?
Yeah, this year is our conference year in NASU, and we have layers of elections and activities that will culminate eventually to the National Delegates Conference that will be holding first week of December. We started after we moved out of the NASU Delegates Conference. I've been conducting elections in our branches all over the country, and we concluded the elections in our branches spread across all the nooks and crannies of the 36 states and the FCT in July. Then in August, we conducted elections for our state councils, 36 plus 1 of them. From 30th of August, we started the conferences of our trade groups. We have 7 trade groups covering different sectors. We have teaching and specialist hospitals trade group. Their conference took place in Abuja last Wednesday and Thursday. Today we started the conference for the colleges of education. From here we move to Ilorin for the universities and inter-university centers. From there we move to Uyo for schools and colleges. We will then be dealing with the conference of the polytechnics and others.
So what would you say is the essence of all of these engagements with several groups? How does this improve the activities, the union activities?
You see, every 4 years there must be a renewal of mandate. A renewal of mandate and then a review of the activities of all the organs of the union, and then we set agendas for the next 4 years. Those agendas will naturally include unresolved issues and challenges of the past 4 years. And then we also try to research into new approaches. Some of the approaches that we used in the past that didn't yield appropriate results, we modify them. And then after assessing the impact of those strategies we use, and we'll find that it didn't work, if you follow very carefully, you observe now that the deployment of strike actions is becoming a problem, because it appears as if government and employers of labor no longer see strike as something that moves them.
Let me take you back to that conversation you have about strategies in trade unionism or trade unionism movement. I remember very clearly during the conference that you mentioned the issue of strike not being effective anymore. Why do you think we find ourselves in this situation, and what do you think that the working force need to do differently to ensure that they get results from governments when their needs are not met?
I think the EU actually has to do with the fact that when you have those in government that believes that they can wear you out when you go on strike, it's also a new approach by employers to say when they get tired, they will go back to work. And that's why they have also deployed the instrumentality of no work, no pay. All of this is about the fact that government is abandoning its responsibilities to the workers. They are more concerned about the perquisite of office. They are no longer interested. Because when unions, particularly the unions in the education sector, when unions are asking for legitimate things to happen, to move the education sector forward, government appear to be very unconcerned. One of those things that we have been agitating for is improvement in the funding of education. The more we talk about improving the funding, the quantum of the money you allocate to education yearly, the more we talk about it, the more these government people talk about private sector involvement in education. And that for us is abandoning their responsibility. Because education is a social service. And if you then privatize it, you take education away from the rich of the poor. And I do not see anybody in this government or in the former government that has sympathy for some of the key issues we have been raising about education. It's simply that they keep on telling you they don't have the resources, so they have to bring in private people to drive the process. And that for us clearly is not the right way to go. So when you have a situation where the employers of labor and government know that what the workers are asking for is legitimate, but they made up their mind that they are not going to respond positively to such demands, then the union is completely at a crossroad. And that's why you see very long strike.
And yet no effect.
And government will not even do as if there's a problem. So this nonchalance is beginning to also affect the system. If you go to majority of our institutions now, either owned by state or the federal, majority of them are dead in infrastructure.
Very quickly, still on the issue of funding education, we are aware of some universities increase in school fees. Some of the increase more than 50%, some more than 100%. We have a public institution that is charging students about 400,000 naira just for hostel fee. How would you respond to this as the General Secretary of NASU and also as the Vice President Global of PSI?
Clearly, it's a misplaced priority of government. You can't charge students. Students are not, they don't drop from heaven. Students are products of families. They have parents. And where the lives of those parents have not been improved or formed by whatever government rolls out, either as economic incentives, salaries, welfare packages, and you suddenly start increasing fees, tuition, accommodation. And the most annoying thing about this is that accommodations most time these are provided for by TET fund. And TET fund money is public money. And then you didn't take loan from anywhere to build these hostels. And then you come and because you are looking for money, you come and charge students, you increase what you charge them by almost 200–300%. I think it's exploitation. Government itself is becoming an exploiter. And clearly it's unacceptable. And that is why you see protests here and there in our universities and other tertiary institutions. I think we have to prevail on this government to look backward and make sure that you can't increase fees of students when the parents are languishing in poverty. Except you are saying that these parents have to, they just have, you don't want them to resist again. Because I cannot see how a man who earns less than 100,000, you ask this the student or his son or his daughter to go and pay 40,000, 50,000, 100,000, 200,000 for accommodation alone in the university. The question is, how much are the parents earning?
And you see a lot of vices going on in the university system. You see some students even living larger than life itself. Yeah, as a parent, what kind of signal would you say this is actually bringing forth?
Yeah, but you know, the institution itself is a part of the larger society. And you can therefore not completely eliminate some of these vices in these small institutions, because you will also always have, even within those institutions, where you say you have a preponderance of children coming from relatively poor homes, you will also have the children of those who have made money legitimately or illegitimately. And those children will have to flaunt their parents' wealth. It's everywhere. And though it doesn't send a good signal, or probably you can't use that as a basic indices for shutting up the fee or whatever you charge, because you also have to work on what is the percentage of these students compared to the bigger chunk that are struggling. Don't forget also that some of these students are struggling to even sponsor themselves, pay their own fees, and even look after themselves. So when you drive what you charge out of the reach of some of, then they go into other criminal activities. They cannot, because they have to make sure that they make both ends meet. So I don't know whether government doesn't have another very
But if the federal government sent a press release about a month ago saying that public institutions remains, public tertiary institution remains tuition free. And from the observation of things, is the management of the university system that is taking it upon themselves to make these structural adjustments in terms of fee price. What will be your message? Because right now it's like as if there's not, even though it's a federal government-owned institution that is faced with this challenge, there's no synergy. The management of most institutions are acting independently.
I don't, you know, there are times that government use statements just to deceive the public. If this government is honest about the contents of their statement, they should then have bring to book or to justice the head of such institution that violates the directive. So I think it's a sort of, it's just a tricky thing, government playing politics. But you as the institution not to charge the students, they still free. But you are not giving them funds to run the place. So how will they run the place? It's simple. If I owe a school as a proprietor, and I told my staff, don't charge so much, I must be ready to bridge the gap of the difference.
So would you be now calling for the increase in the budgetary allocation
to
education?
Absolutely. That has been, we have never deviated, we have never slowed down, we have never stopped. We have always been canvassing for the need for government to move from this patry budgetary allocation to education. The highest we have gone before was about 12%. Now, even now, it's about 8% of the annual budget. And our struggle is about, look, let's move this thing to about 20%. The UNESCO recommendation is 26%. But we say, well, because of other competing challenges of government, we can move this thing to 20% and things will begin to at least, the burden will reduce considerably on parents. When government is not funding sufficiently or adequately because of the political problem, when they are doing campaign, they have promised free education, they promise all of this just to get votes. And the moment they get the votes and get to office, they begin to do something different. So I think it's really a problem.
All right, very quickly, there's this issue of some state government not paying workers' salary. How would you respond to this development? What do you think needs to be done? And can you state some of the states that fall into this bracket?
Now, it has been a recurring problem. State governments are not ready to pay salaries, or in some cases, they pay what we refer to as amputated salaries. They don't pay in full. And of course, what they say is that they don't have resources, enough resources to pay salaries. But salary must be in the first line charge. You have to pay. I think it's a little bit nonsensical when they say they use all the money they collect or they are able to generate on payment of salaries. Payment of salaries is key.
So moving forward in general terms, what will be your expectation from this government towards ensuring that we have a robust working force, which will in turn imply that we'll have a robust economy?
First is that let them review salaries of workers.
Not wage award?
No. I'm opposed to wage award. It's going to be another way of shortchanging workers. Salary review will take into consideration the cost of living, which means that at the end of the day, when they put how much we were paying for a liter of PMS before the Tinubu administration, how much we were paying for transport from one place to the other before the Tinubu pronouncement on removal of subsidy, how much we were paying for a bag of rice, how much are we paying for 2 tubers of yam, how much are we paying for garri, how much are we paying for electricity. All of those must be put in context. Not salary award. That government, naturally salary award will be basically based on what government refers to affordability.
Thank you very much for your time. It's always, I would not say interesting, but it's always a knowledgeable time with you. Thank you for your time.
Thanks for having me.
And that's all we can take on today's edition of the program. Join us next week for a fresh edition of the show. I am Sharon Ijason. Thanks for watching, and remember that labor creates wealth.